Hello everyone, welcome to HIM 216. In this lecture, we'll have a brief orientation of the course and the expectations, and then we'll actually go into Blackboard and review this course in Blackboard. Obviously, you're in Blackboard because you made it to this orientation. When we're in Blackboard, I'm going to direct you to the syllabus and the course schedule and plan of instruction. Those are documents that you need to review, and then you need to complete a compliance statement saying that you've read those and understand them. If you do not, then you have a couple of options, but they include getting in touch with the instructor, and we'll go over those when we are in Blackboard. I always like to ask my students in the classroom a couple of questions at the beginning of the coding course. And one is, how many of you have taken English in the past? How many of you taken math and social studies and history? Probably for years and years and years throughout your education. But how many of you have actually taken a coding course? Some of you may have completed some coding education as a part of continuing education or maybe with your employer. But typically students in this course have not taken a structured academic coding course. That's very important for you to understand because coding is not like anything that you have done before. And you need to be very diligent in your study of coding. This class is a very fast-paced course. We're going to cover 9 chapters over the course of the 10-week summer semester. We're going to cover chapters 1 through 9. And there will be several weeks when we're covering 2 chapters in 1 week, and then when we cover the procedural coding system, we'll actually cover that over a period of 3 weeks. We strictly adhere to due dates in this course, and we do have an assignment submission policy, which you should all be familiar with from your other semesters in the HIM program, and we do adhere to those dates. I'm going to caution you, if you get behind in coding, you are going to stay behind in coding. I strongly encourage you to log in at the beginning of each week, look at what your assignments are for that week, and begin reading the material in your textbook and working on that course. As a matter of fact, when we'll have a quick discussion of the book when we get into Blackboard, and I'll give you some my suggestions on how you should go about studying in this course. There will be lectures for all of the chapters that we'll be covering in chapters 1 through 9. Listening to those lectures is mandatory. During the course of that lecture, you will be asked a question, and for the assignment, you will actually open the assignment, type in the answer to the question that's given to you, and then you will submit that assignment. You can't assume that the questions are always going to be at the end of the assignment. Sometimes during the questions are going to be at the end of the lecture. Sometimes during the lectures, I will ask more than one question, and they'll be scattered throughout that particular lecture. There is a specific format for submitting homework, and there's actually a little blurb in Blackboard that we'll go over. Usually the question is not retyped, and we'll go over that format. And actually, when you open that homework assignment, you're only going to enter the answer. Always read the directions for the assignment before you open it up. For instance, you only have one attempt at the homework assignments, and that's because the actual homework assignment is included in either your textbook or your workbook. So when you read the assignment, for instance, it will tell you to go to the chapter review and answer questions 1 through 18. So you do that. You go to your book, you look at the questions, you answer the questions, and then when you open up the homework assignment, be prepared to enter all of your answers at that time. When you are actually coding and entering a coding answer into a question, the format that you will follow for those particular answers is to list a code followed by a comma and a space and then the next code. This is very important to note, that formatting, because if the format of your answer, whether it is a code or a narrative answer, isn't exactly the format that the answer is built in the assignment, it will be marked wrong. Now, it's important for you to know that I review all of your submissions. And I will go in and review your answer, and I will override the points and reassign the points. When you submit an assignment, you may submit an assignment and see a grade of 35, and you're just going to panic and say, oh my gosh, I don't understand this at all. I missed almost every single question. Well, that will be because you didn't format it exactly as the answer formatted it, and you were not awarded points. But I will go in and review all of your answers, and I'll override those points. So don't panic when you see those points. In fact, I've considered not even letting students see their grade for these assignments because they just immediately panic and send me an email and I need to see the answers. What did I get wrong? And you just cannot go by those points that are assigned. And of course, if you don't use a comma and a space between your codes, then they will be counted wrong. If you just put one code and then a space and another code and a space, even though you may have them sequenced correctly, even though they may be the correct, exactly correct code, they'll be counted wrong because you didn't have a comma along with that space. When you submit your assignments, you will not see the correct answers. Once I have graded assignments after the due date, then you will be able to go in and see your assignment and your answers and the correct answers. Your assignments close Sunday at midnight, and Monday morning is when I usually do the grading. So usually by the end of the day on Monday, I will have posted an announcement in which I will tell you that grading is complete. And then at that point in time, you can certainly go in, look at your answers, and contact me if you have any questions about how the grading was accomplished. When I record the lectures in these classes, I use Screencast-O-Matic, and those lectures are available in YouTube. I will create a very much, well, exactly like this orientation video, I will create an assignment for the lecture, and then put the link to the lecture in that assignment, and that's how you will access it. There will also be a link in the navigation panel that says lectures. So once an assignment with the lecture link has closed, you can still go back in and listen to that lecture by going into the lecture tab, the lecture section on the navigation tab. And students consistently tell me that they will listen to the lectures a number of times. They find them very helpful, and actually I use the textbook for the majority of the lectures that I record, not the textbook, not the PowerPoint, but actually I go through the textbook and guide you through the textbook. We are going to be using the 3M coding and reimbursement software extensively in this course. It's part of the eHIM Virtual Lab. Now you will have purchased the eHIM Virtual Lab in the spring semester. You'll be using it this summer in this coding class, and then this fall you are going to have to repurchase your access to the virtual lab. The access lasts for a year, and it goes from August through July. So you'll need to repurchase that virtual lab in the fall when we're taking HIM 215. We are as a part of that coding and reimbursement software, we are using the integrated code books for both ICD-10 CM and ICD-10 PCS. You cannot complete these coding classes if you are not utilizing the 3M software in the virtual lab. We do not require that you purchase a hard copy of the code books, but if you would like to have a hard copy of code books, we certainly would encourage you to purchase those, and you can get them from any vendor. They're not available in the bookstore because they are not required for this course. The code book that we use is actually an code book, an electronic code book. It's used exactly the same way as a paper code book, but it's much quicker to use. Once you become familiar with using the ebook, you can easily transition to a paper book. You will have an assignment in the course that will direct you to complete some tutorials in 3M. The tutorials actually walk you through using all aspects of the software, not only the integrated code book, which we'll use extensively, but also the encoder and the grouping software. And we'll actually look at that software in HIM 225. We don't use it in 216. Basically, if you don't know how to code, you really cannot use an encoder because you have to have an idea of what the coding guidelines are in order to assign codes. And the encoder will ask you questions. It uses an algorithm, and if you don't know the guidelines and you can't answer the questions, you will not get the correct codes. I can always tell when students have used the encoder because they come up with codes that are nowhere close to where they should be. In this course, in both chapters 5 and 6, we cover coding guidelines and PCS guidelines. You'll be tested on the general coding guidelines, and you'll be tested on the PCS guidelines. These are critical assignments. You have to earn a grade of 75 or higher on those tests, or you will be required to complete a test autopsy. If you don't complete the test autopsy, then you'll receive a grade of D in this course, and of course then you'll have to recycle in the program. On Fridays, we are typically here at the campus from about 8:30 or 9 until about 1 in the afternoon. I will do tutoring on Friday for students that want to come to the Benson campus. We will sit down, we'll log into the PCs in the classroom, and I can do tutoring for you. If you're interested in coming in for tutoring, you just need to call me, and to make an appointment, we'll set up a time for you to come in. Now, I'm going to take you into Blackboard. And this is when you log in, you will land at the announcement page. All of our classes are standardized, so this navigation on the panel on the left side is consistent from course to course. The one exception is we've added lectures to this course. In some of the courses, lectures are in course content, but because we have so many of them, we've put them in lectures. Announcements, of course, are on the announcement page, and of course you saw this because you're completing this orientation. When you look at instructor information, the best way to contact me is via email. You certainly may call my office. However, in the evening or the weekend, if you have a pressing issue, shoot me an email. I typically check emails during the weekend as well as in the evening so that I can address any questions or concerns that you have. Then when we go into course syllabus and information, you'll find obviously the syllabus here, the course schedule and plan of instruction. We'll go into that in just a minute. And then this is the course schedule and plan of instruction compliance statement that you need to complete. The HIM documents are very important. Most of these documents are included in the student handbook, and we actually do have the student handbook here as well. That handbook will be in every class that you take, and as it's updated, the updated handbook will be in the course. Online attendance is important. You're an online student. You were in the last semester, so you're very familiar with online attendance. You'll notice that we have included the AHEMA Code of Ethics as well as the AHEMA Standards of Ethical Coding here. And then, of course, we have the assignment submission policy, which is very important. When you're answering questions for the coding homework, you'll have chapter review exercises and you'll have a workbook exercises. The question title will tell you whether or not it's a chapter review or a workbook, and it will tell you which question it is. So for instance, if you see CR 1.1, that you'll know that that is the chapter review for chapter 1, and it's the first question. And you'll see that consistently through the assignments. And in the first several assignments, you will see an explanation of how those questions are formatted in that assignment. Now, we also include the 2014 weight table, and once we get into this book, if they're using the 2015 table, I will change it, but I believe they're going to be using the 2014 table. And then we do have the 2016 coding guidelines for CM and PCS. It's important to know that these are going to change, are potentially going to change October the 1st. That's when updates typically are issued. For instance, in the year 2016 and October 1st, we expect there to be over 3,000 changes because there has been a moratorium on any changes to ICD-10. When those updates are available, I will review them, and then I will have a lecture within the course and go over the highlights of those changes. There is also an interpretation of the standards of ethical coding here, and then a number of other documents. For instance, in Chapter 1, it talks about a compliance plan. It references this article, Constructing a Coding Compliance Plan, Developing a Coding Compliance Document. These are excellent resources. And then we have a Students with Disabilities statement. These PowerPoint slides actually are included in course content. So if we go into course content, these are the PowerPoints for each of the chapters. For Chapter 6, I have changed the way that I am lecturing in that course. This folder includes lectures and assignments that I have used previously in the past. These take you through PowerPoint presentations that include codes, the PCS codes, and how to find those codes. Then there is also, for instance, this is Chapter 6, Lecture 9 assignment. So if you click on this link, you will be taken to a YouTube video that actually demonstrates different examples and how to find those codes. If you click on this assignment, it will actually take you into an assignment with unlimited attempts, so you can actually practice assigning codes and see how well you do. When we go into lectures, you will find the lectures that will become available after an assignment has closed. And if we look at the discussion questions, you're going to introduce yourself to your fellow classmates. There is a general discussion question, as you'll find in all of the classes. If you have a question that's really not covered in a discussion question, you can post that here. If you have any questions about the syllabus, you can post that here. But also we encourage you to get in touch with the instructor if you have any questions about the syllabus or the course schedule and plan of instruction. question. And then you have discussions. Not every week has a discussion question. Once we really get into the meat of coding, you really become immersed in that process. You'll find your assignments under the Assignment tab. These are listed in the order in which they are due. It corresponds to the Grade Center. So for instance, you have clicked on the orientation lecture to get to this particular orientation lecture, and then you'll notice that we have Chapter 1, Lecture 1. And so there, this actually, I'm going to include that lecture with this particular lecture, so you won't have that. What you will have is the chapter review for Chapter 1 and then the workbook assignment for Chapter 1. And so you'll see that your assignment is to read Chapter 1 and then answer the chapter review questions at the end of the chapter. Once you've answered those questions, then open this assignment and enter your answers to those chapter review questions. And you'll enter only the answer, and each question corresponds to a question in chapter review, and of course the example is CR 1.1. Then once you have answered the questions, you submit the assignment, and that's it. You have one shot. Now, for this particular chapter review, the questions have been typed into this particular homework assignment. Typically, that is not the case, but it is the case with Chapter 1. And then you also have the workbook assignment for Chapter 1, and you'll notice that this tells you specifically that the glossary definitions are formatted as GL.1, GL.2, and so on and so forth. And then the multiple choice questions are formatted as WB.1, MC.1. So that's workbook, Chapter 1, multiple choice question 1, multiple choice question 2, and etc. If you have any questions about that format, please don't hesitate to let me know. Then your tests are in the test folder, and you can either access them from your My Grades, or you can go into the tests through the navigation panel. Web links, you will find web links that are going to be extremely helpful. For instance, when we began using 3M, this is the link to 3M and the username and the password. You'll probably go to CMS on many occasions. Definitely as we progress through this program, you'll become very familiar with the CMS website. So this is a link to CMS. Guidelines. NCHS, or the CDC, actually publishes the coding guidelines for CM. However, PCS is specifically created and managed by CMS, so you have to go to the CMS website for the procedural coding system coding guidelines. And I encourage you to go into all of these links and look at the information that's available. Now I want you to take your textbook, and your textbook is ICD-10 CM PCS Coding Theory and Practice 2016 edition. You have a textbook and a workbook. If you haven't already purchased these, they can be purchased in a bundle through the Greenville Tech website, Greenville Tech bookstore. However, you can purchase them separately online, and the ISBN for these books is in the syllabus. When you look on page 1 in the textbook for Chapter 1, typically we find that these chapters are formatted fairly consistently. So you'll start with the chapter outline, the learning objectives, And then I always encourage you, before you read the chapter, look at the abbreviations and acronyms. For some chapters, they're pretty well known and pretty generic. For others, they are not. And there are times that I'm working in a chapter that I have to come back and look at these abbreviations and remind myself what that abbreviation means. This is a short chapter. It's a very short chapter. And if you look on page 8 and 9, you'll see the chapter review questions. I encourage you to read the chapter review questions before you read the chapter, because these are the questions you're going to have to answer as your homework. And so if you read these as you are going through the chapter, you might be reminded that there is in fact a chapter review question, and you need to know the answer to that. Then also look at the chapter glossary. These are often terms that are very applicable in the chapter that you are going to be reading. In this very short chapter, basically this chapter is covering the reason for and the history of coding and the transitions that have occurred, the national organizations that are involved with coding credentials, and a little bit about compliance and confidentiality. And your assignment for this lecture will actually be to identify for me which federal department is responsible for the investigations into violations for fraud and abuse, which is what happens when coding is done incorrectly. It's either defined as fraud, which is unintentional, or abuse, which is absolutely intentional. And coding drives reimbursement, and so there is an incentive to providers to commit abuse, because the way they code impacts reimbursement. And of course, that's something that we will be going over in subsequent chapters. So this will conclude your first lecture for HIM 216. Again, answer the question that I asked. You will open the assignment, type in your answer, and submit the assignment. Thank you.